Hello and welcome to Moneycontrol. Hi, this is Nikki. In one of the highest ever quarterly profit figure, Hindalco Industries posted 48% year-on-year jump in consolidated profit at a number of around 4,119 crore. But to know more about the financials, macros, and the micro situation, we've been joined by the managing director of the company, Mr. Satish Pai. Hello and welcome to Moneycontrol. Sir, I'm going to start off by asking you about your all-time high profits that the company has recorded. It's up by as much as 27% year on year on consolidated basis. What explains this growth and what can be expected going forward?
So I think that, if you look at this quarter, all the businesses of the company perform well. I was particularly happy to see the very strong bounce back of the Novelis business, which after a slightly subdued Q4 came back very strongly in Q1. So Novelis had a record quarter with record net income, record EBITDA per ton at $580 per ton. Then the Indian copper business also did extremely well. So we have been, sort of working on their operational issues, and now they have started to fire on all cylinders. So you can see that the copper business at 560 crores also had a very strong quarter. So then we get to the aluminium business in India, both upstream and downstream. Downstream did very well. For the first time, we are splitting out the numbers and giving you the downstream as well. And the upstream business, even though LME had started to come down, coal costs has started to go up, we still managed to do a fairly good performance with 38% EBITDA. So all-round performance that I think I would attribute to a very strong quarter in Q1.
Sure, I was just going to chat about the input cost pressures, which I'm sure you would want to talk about because that's one parameter that's apparently weighing down on the financials of the company. Where do we see that headed right now? Or what kind of sequential increase are you seeing in all aluminium, alumina, and your copper division for quarter two, as well as for the second half of the financial?
So the first thing is the cost uh, headwinds that we see really affect only the aluminium upstream business. Novelis, copper, alumina, chemicals will not see a lot because the Indian aluminium business, the biggest impact is coming from coal. The rest are not that bad impacted by coal. So the upstream business, the problem has been both the availability and cost. As you know, a lot of the coal had been diverted to the independent power plants, and the non-regulated sectors like aluminium, we did not get as much linkage as we should have got. And hence we had to buy a lot of coal on the auction market where the premiums went very high. So the biggest impact of that cost inflation in the next quarter is going to come on the upstream aluminium business. The other businesses will not see such a big impact.
Sure, Mr. Pai, what is the kind of cost escalation that you're seeing on account of that? And also, if you could give us a flavor of how the e-auction premium are now stacking up for Coal India, what kind of incremental cost pressures are we witnessing in this quarter?
So we have guided, the Q1 to Q4 costs went up by 17%. And we are saying now that Q2 to Q1 will go up another high teens increase. So that is what we are saying. And the e-auction premiums had jumped nearly up to 500%, have since come down to about 300 to 250%. And we are hoping that it will start to come down more as more coal becomes available.
But you're still seeing some amount of cost pressure in Q2. What's your assessment in the second half of the financial year? You think still there will be a escalated cost of production overall for your upstream aluminum division?
No, Nikki, I think that, for us, Q2 will be the peak and the worst. So we are already seeing signs of more coal being available. So our prediction is that Q3 and Q4 will be much better than Q2. So after Q2, we should start to see our cost of production coming down in Q3 and further going down in Q4.
Any kind of guidance that you'd like to give for Q3 and Q4? I understand you've given a mid-teens guidance for Q2, but when it comes to the second half, what is the kind of reduction that one can expect?
So I think, it's very tough for me to give any specific guidance right now because it's all going to depend on how the coal availability plays out. So, I mean, suffice to say that I'm expecting it to come below Q2, but can't really give you a exact percentage number right now.
Maybe a single digit, rise that you could expect in cost of production, if not for.
Not rise, lower. Q2 will be the peak.
Okay.
From
So,
Q2, Q3 will come down. It won't go up further.
any kind of ballpark estimate that we could work with?
No, I think it's going to be, below 10% reduction from Q2
Fair
is the
enough.
best
Fair
I
enough.
can do right now. Yeah.
And also, quantum and the levels at which hedging has been happening right now.
We have not hedged any further. So, what we talked in the last quarter, we have 30% aluminium hedged at $2,500 per ton.
Okay, I also wanted to chat about your Novelis division because, as usual, it's been a stellar performance coming in from that division as a whole. Of course, you've been guiding the numbers in that range and it's been sticking by to the picture. But what's in for Q2? Because I've been hearing that Novelis, a very major client, has been cutting down on the capex plans. How do you intend to take this forward? And do you think some amount of demand moderation now can set in for that division of yours?
So we are fairly confident about the can demand in North America for Novelis. So we have seen from all our supplies that we are given, and also historically, even if the market slows down, can demand normally has not really slowed down. So we remain fairly confident about our projections for our shipments of can for the rest of the year.
And the EBITDA per ton guidance that you'd like to give out for Novelis for the second half and the second quarter?
So I think $580 is very high. We have been guiding that we are going to be about $525 and plus. So that's the guidance we gave on the analyst call earlier today.
Okay, fair enough. Also, a word, on how do you now view the overall aluminium market? So much of production curtailment has been happening, supply side adjustments that we've seen, one after the other companies that I'm sure have been guiding and they've been talking about how they can shut down the refineries so that it's more sustainable at margin level for them. Do you see any of that happening for our country?
Do I see anything happening for
Any of
that in
that
India?
happening for our country, or does the company plan to undertake a plan where it will cut down on the supply side so that the demand kind of gets adjusted to that?
No, because the demand in India is pretty strong. So I don't think you're going to see any curtailment of capacity. It's true that the profitability is going to come under pressure. But I think that in these type of situations, you have to remember that aluminium inventories are at all-time lows worldwide. So people are going to take a slightly longer view. And I think that they're going to ride it out during some of these tough quarters that we're going to see ahead.
That's exactly why I'm puzzled, because the inventories are at all-time low that we're looking at. We're looking at lower LME prices. We're still looking at supply side adjustments happening. But all of that is pretty much still now weighing down on the prices. I mean, there is no comfort coming in there. So, what's your assessment? I was reading your presentation also, and you Hindalco said that world ex China, we're looking at a consumption of -2%. So there is not enough and more demand probably.
No, it's not a demand problem. Commodity prices today are reflecting the macroeconomic uncertainties. And it's not just aluminium, it's any commodity, so many stock prices. I think people are worried whether interest rates are going up. Will there be a recession in the Western world or not? Is the Chinese economy slowing down? So I think there is a war going on that's creating its own energy and supply chain issues. So I think that the number of uncertainties are really clouding up the economic environment, which is what is keeping commodity prices subdued. So I think it's nothing to do with the fundamentals of supply and demand. It's more to do with the market sentiment, which is now keeping the prices low.
But isn't it also true that Chinese production has been rather too high and is expected to be high in the second half of the financial year, which also is leading to some amount of fears that there would be some more pressure coming in on the LME prices? What's your assessment on that one?
So I think that it also depends whether you believe the Chinese economy has seen the worst of the COVID shutdowns and is going to bounce back. So if the Chinese economy picks back up, I want to remind you, last year, same time, China was importing aluminium. So there was aluminium going from the rest of the world into China because they were short of aluminium. So I think these things can change very quickly depending on your view on the economic environment. So I think we'll have to wait and see. I personally believe that the worst is over. and the Chinese economy probably will show more strength in the second half of the year.
And where do you see the LME prices headed now? Do you think we've hit the bottom, or you think further pressure is escalating on overall LME aluminium prices?
So the aluminium prices have been they have corrected down to the 2400 levels, and for the last couple of months it's holding at that level. So I don't know whether that's the bottom or not, but I think you're going to see it range bound in this sort of levels until the macroeconomic situation gets cleared up. So you will see it hovering around 2400 till the things become more clear.
So 2,400 to what would be your range, sir? And this will be for the entire financial year, right?
No, I honestly don't know what the range could be, because if the economic environment changes, things get more clearer, then the LME can go up. So I think that what we have seen now with all this bad news, recession, it's holding at 2400. So the best you can say is that probably it has found a floor. How high the ceiling can be, I don't know.
Okay, we've hit the bottom clearly, but the further upside is something that you can't really predict. But you are seeing upside coming in from now onwards. You already say that LME prices have bottomed out, right?
Yes, I think that if unless the economic environment gets dramatically worse for any reason that we don't know, it is probably at the bottom, is my personal feeling.
Okay, at what level do you think of the LME prices, of course, that I'm talking, what level do you think there would be a supply side adjustment that would be kicked in, even from Hindalco level? So if it breaches, or maybe, if it falls below a specific level that will trigger an action, what according to you that level is?
So, it doesn't work at a spot level. People in the aluminium business do take a slightly longer term view, because you can't just shut down capacity and bring it back on. So, aluminium prices have to remain low for over a year for people to take a drastic decision of shutting down ports in India.
And globally, how much do you think should go out so that market is a little more balanced in terms of?
It's balanced, Nikki. There's no oversupply of aluminium. If you saw our
Sure,
presentation and the numbers, it's in deficit. So
sure.
it's nothing to do with the market balance. It's to do with the economic sentiment and the worry that people have about a future demand going down. So it's nothing to do with current supply and demand.
Okay, so how much is the country's demand growth that you're estimating for aluminum market in that case?
So already we are back to about a million tons, which is a good uh, 7 to 8% increase over last year, and this has happened in Q1 alone. So I think that going forward, we will probably see a 8 to 9% increase this year versus last year.
That's a fair demand estimate, I would say.
Yes.
And also a word on any kind of measures that you are expecting from the government side, because there was some relief which came in for the steel players when it came to the raw material prices. Of course, there was an export duty too, which was not levied on the aluminum industry, but steel industry did have to face all of that. But with that assessment and the LME prices now being bottomed out, what do you think? Are there any more measures in the offing?
All we need is that Coal India should provide us coal. That's it. Everything else we can manage.
And how are the linkages stacking up right now?
I mean, they had cut it down to 75%. We are starting to see they have not yet lifted the cap, but we are hopeful that in the coming days that they will do that. So for me, the biggest ask is availability of coal.
All right, so we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for taking out the time and speaking to Moneycontrol.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pai.